Hello, my Buffett Thousand Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. All right, we are back with another That Chapter. That's right. This one is titled The Taxi Sadist, Christopher Halliwell. The Taxi Sadist just really caught my attention. I don't know why exactly, but it did. All right, I'm excited for today's story, so go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cuddle up with someone special. Let's get creeped the hell out to where we never want to take a taxi ever again. Ever. Again. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. Alright. Step.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, what we're talking about is the story of a taxi. You know yourself, like booking it around, having a grand old time. The driver was... anyway, passengers... maybe not. In all England, this time skipping the merry because, well, you know where this is going. In southwest England, there's this town called Swindon. In that town, for many years, someone was hiding in plain sight. Could be behind you right now. Here, I'll give you a second to check if you want. Or, hey, as I would say, have a go.
But here's the thing. Technically, whoever's killing them technically is behind me. Oh, see.
So let's check out Swindon and all the myriad things it has to offer, right? Start licking your chops because you know it's going to be good. Well, it's about halfway between the cities of Bristol and Reading. Nah, I've already Reading. It's got a museum about trains, a big ol' roundabout, don't keep that to yourselves. Holy shit, everybody, the tourism office. In the greater Swindon area, about 200,000 people live
Oh, shit. He's in rare form on this one, ain't he?
there. Why? From just reading some boards and stuff, people writing about Swindon, it seems just fine. It's a pretty featureless town, but around it is some very beautiful countryside.
Ooh. I like beautiful countryside.
In Swindon, there's a nightclub, Suju be its name, or was its name, it's since been changed. It's located on...
Why would you change it from Suju? That sounds freaking amazing. I'm gonna name my next child Suju.
on High Street,
I don't know what Suju means. I probably shouldn't do that.
opposite a Domino's and a kebab shop.
Dominoes.
Bon appetit. So if you were to go clubbing in Suju, you might have a great old time. Though, I mean, come on, let's be honest. But if you didn't want to go with the plebeians and you wanted to go with the patricians, you might get pro-irity. I'll only get pro-irity if it gets me out of there. Now let's go back in time to 2011.
I really hope and pray to God they meant priority.
The night of the
I don't know what pro-irity is. Pro-irity?
19th of March. That night, Shan O'Callaghan was out with some friends having a grand old time. I'll give Suju the benefit of the doubt. Shan was just 22 years old, working as an office worker in Swindon. That night, well, you know, it was a night out like any other. Till it wasn't.
Till what? Wait. I hate when he does that. It was just a regular night out until it wasn't. Oh, God.
As I said, you know, she'd been out with her friends, having a few drinks and blah blah blah. However, she left at close to 3 a.m. by herself. She left alone. And after that, she wasn't seen again. She was supposed to be, you know, getting home. She only lived about half a mile away from that club. She shared a flat with her boyfriend, Kevin. But she never made it. She vanished that dark, damp night. At about 3:30 a.m., so half an hour after she left the club, Kevin, who was at home, perhaps waking up, wondering where she was, texted her, worried. Nothing.
They ain't good. They ain't good. People always text message back. Yeah. Phone might not have been dead. Could have not been on vibrate. Yeah. It happens.
With no word from her, and then, contacting her friends and getting nothing back from them, the following morning he contacted the police and reported Sian O'Callaghan missing. So the hunt was on. So the police did the logical thing, right? It's gotta be the first thing. It's gotta be the first thing, and let's go to where she was last seen. They first went back, they first started...
Which makes 100% perfect sense. As an officer of the law, you're going to want to start someplace.
Off by going back to Suju, talking to her friends, seeing what time she left the club at, and then trying to get some footage of that. They got CCTV from the premises and footage of her leaving in the wee hours. She exited and began walking up this small path. What happens next is blinded by the light. Then she was gone.
Oh, no, she ain't gone. She walked into the library. She's just in a better place. She's on a spaceship. See, he thought I was going to say she was dead. No, she got abducted by aliens. Unless there's a body, then yeah, she's dead.
Hospitals were checked, the route she would have taken home, and the word was out to the public.
The boyfriend of a woman who's been missing since the early hours of Saturday morning has made a tearful plea for information. Sian O'Callaghan, who's 22, hasn't been seen since leaving a nightclub in Swindon.
After leaving this nightclub in the early hours of Saturday morning, Sian O'Callaghan appeared to just vanish into thin air.
I really like the name Suju. Suju.
Just want to say how very worried we are about Sian. She's been missing now for over 2 days, and it's not like her not to come home or contact any of us for such a long time. We all want to know where Sian is, and we want her home safe and well. Sian is a bubbly, lively person who is instantly liked by everyone she meets. She's very close to her family and has lots of friends. We'd like to thank all of the people who have shown their support and helped search for Sian. Their kind words...
Was that her family? Was that her madre and padre and sissy and bubby and hubby and all that good shit?
And then a man named Stephen Fulcher, he took over the case, essentially. He was the lead investigator. He's a lad who would prove to be a little bit contentious, but we'll get to that later on. Now, the text...
Don't know what the word contentious means.
Kevin sent Sian that very early morning. Meaning it was received. Her phone received it. So therefore what the police did was trace to what tower, her phone was near when she got that text. And it turned out to be, well, not in Swindon. It brought them to a forest, if you can believe that. A forest named Savernake Forest. That's 12 miles south of the town. A pretty big wood.
That mast in Savernake covers a colossal area. Trees, undergrowth, awful for a police search.
It couldn't be harder. 6.5 mile radius of the Savernake Forest. Now, clearly that in...
Radius. He was really excited about the word radius. Does anyone else notice that? That's the word of the day. Radius.
Any terms is a difficult search issue, and I haven't got explicit locations that I can pinpoint a search parameter around.
At this point, you don't exactly need to be a genius lead investigator to determine that her being in a forest 12 miles south of town, half an hour after she left a club.
First place the aliens came to when they dropped her off. Problem solved.
She probably wasn't there willingly. The forest was scoured, no tires kicked, time wasted.
Extraordinary scenes here. More than 400 people turned out today, and you can guarantee that just a couple of days ago, 350 of them perhaps hadn't even heard of Sian O'Callaghan.
Everyone just loves her.
It's just unbelievable.
Want to get out and help people fight.
How many people actually know her? She was an amazing person. How long did you know her? I've seen clips of her on the TV, and I feel like we have this connection.
them.
What we've covered so far is about the size of a postage stamp.
With a horse that big?
But all they had was this footage. Grainy, shitty CCTV of her walking, a car, the lights. Ah, my eyes! And then she was gone. The thing about those lights, that car in that footage, it didn't just go past. The car stopped just exactly where Shan was walking, and it stayed there for over a minute. Due to the lights blinding the cameras, you never actually see Shan get into the car, but she wasn't seen on any, security footage further on from that point. And she only could have gotten, to Savernake Forest from where she is in that CCTV within, that 38-minute time frame of her leaving and getting her boyfriend's text by car. So then the question was, well, A, who was in the car? And B, did she get in willingly or not? The car...
Was it the husband? Oh, I hate it when things do this, because now I'm trying to figure out who it is, and I ain't gonna pay attention to half of this. Because in my head I'm gonna be like, ooh, was it the...
car was found to be a 2007 Toyota Avensis. And another piece of CCTV...
Who owns one of those?
...led to this. That's a taxi marker, or taxi number, on the side of the car. And then the final piece of the puzzle. That was a dash cam on a police car that just so happened to film that taxi driving by literally minutes, possibly even seconds after Shan got in. And that gave them the license plate.
What? So literally just moments. We're just going to say moments. The moments can be a moment or several moments. Hence the moments. So within moments after this deranged, murderous taxi cab driver picked up this unexpected woman, whether by force or willingly, this cop, it's just like, here's cop, here's your bad guy. That's craziness. But I mean, it's a taxi cab driver. If she got in willingly, there's nothing weird about that. I mean, I understand. I'm just saying, like, those situations are fucking weird. Like, what if I would have noticed, like, anything at all and could have done something? Would have still, what would have, what's going, you know what I mean? That fuck with me. Mm-hmm.
And it gave them a name. 47-year-old Christopher Halliwell. A guy who, he doesn't look like a serial killer at all. Such kind eyes.
He looks exactly like the description of a serial killer if you look it up in the encyclopedia. I'm pretty sure it's this picture.
So who, be he. Christopher Halliwell was a local Swindonian, a taxi driver. He was dating a woman named Heather, Heva, and he had 3 children. Professionally, he drove people around in his little taxi. Unprofessionally, he was a burglar who had spent time in prison in the 80s. He was born in Swindon before being brought up in Scotland. Brought up by a very abusive and sadistic woman. Bummer. And he would, do the things like pull the wings off a butterfly. The kind of early signs that he's gonna grow up and be not normal. Then he returned to Swindon as a young fella and got married in the early 90s to a woman named Lisa. He worked as a window cleaner, a builder, burglar, and driver. And his hobbies included fishing and sex workers. He was a bit of a fiend and aficionado, if you will.
He sounds like just a general, all-around horrible person. That's amazing. But sometimes in these stories, you're like, oh, they sounded so, like, not out there at all. Like, they think it was a normal... No, this dude sounds deranged. I like that. I like the fact that the deranged murderer sounds like a deranged murderer. That's a fresh twist, a fresh change of pace. Oh, I'm so excited.
Buyer of goods for the red light district in Swindon. In 2005, he said to Lisa, his wife, "I've had enough of you." And he moved in with her neighbor, Heather, just live a couple of houses down the road. So, I mean, it's kind of handy for him, really. He didn't move was probably easy enough. One of the things they found out about this Chrissy over here when they were doing their inquiries about him was that at about 1:30 a.m. on the night of the 19th of March 2011, he had signed out, you know, from the taxi company or whatever. So he was just driving around Swindon for an hour and a half before he picked up Sian O'Callaghan. He had just been looking for someone, anyone, prey.
Damn.
The police began following him.
So for like an hour or so, this fool's just gonna go around, you know, like driving around town, like window shopping for a murder victim. Yeah, he's a general, all-around horrible person. That's so refreshing.
So what Stephen Fulcher did then was very, very smart. He started releasing more and more information to the media. But what he started doing was like, oh, we're narrowing down where we believe Sian O'Callaghan is. You know, we're getting more specific information from her mobile phone, you know, signature or whatever. And he started, you know, naming places which he thought would be likely burying grounds. The idea was that they were trailing Christopher Halliwell, and they hoped that he might panic, you know, upon hearing this on the radio or whatever, try and move her body. Got him.
There's been a new lead.
Did he try to move her, or was he just going to go check, make sure nothing had moved it?
They do believe that she was driven 12 miles south from the old town of Swindon to the Savernake Forest area.
Did it work? No. What Christopher did instead, once he started...
Not at all. No. Not in the least bit.
Hearing about this, that they might be closing in on the body, you know, with the police trailing him, covert-like, he drove to a chemist's and he just bought a whole shit ton of pills. The police then saw this and were like, well, that's like enough to go sleep forever amount of pills. So they contacted Steve Fulcher, were like, he looks like he might just fucking try to kill himself. So Steve Fulcher was like, okay, arrest him, get him right now. I guess they would like to speak to him, you know, ideally, pre-death. Something then that was a little...
Man, you gotta get some pre-death, because they're dead men tell no tales, and by that logic, you never know. You would just never know. And we can't have that. My brain would implode.
A little contentious, as I mentioned up top, was that Stephen Fulcher, lead investigator, he asked the arresting officers to not bring Christopher to the police station, but instead bring him to the area around Savernake Forest. You know, Christopher should have been booked in, you know, done all the stuff, due process, get a solicitor, a lawyer, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But Steve Fulcher's argument, though, was that, well, here, listen, Sian O'Callaghan, we don't know where she is, she's missing, she's probably kidnapped, you know, she's likely dead, but we don't know that. So therefore, we have to, you know, urgent. They need to conduct an interview with Christopher.
Just in case she is alive and could potentially die while they have him. Got it. Nah, I'm pretty sure she did.
Right now, on location, we had the whole...
Or abducted by aliens.
...rigmarole. So instead of driving him to the station, they drove him, after his arrest, to the woods where they thought he had buried her. After initially saying he wanted to speak to his solicitor, Stephen Fulcher convinced him, and Christopher Halliwell led the police to her body. After which he said, you and I should have a chat.
We needs to talk.
Christopher Halliwell was going to lead the police to another body. In 2007, Becky Godden was reported missing. She was from Swindon, 20 years old, and she had worked as a sex worker. And she had actually gone missing 4 years previous. It took a while for people to notice. Sadly, she had unfortunately fallen to drugs before disappearing. It's likely the taxi had driven by her.
So this fool killed more than one person? Oh god, how many people did he kill? Is it more than the two? Oh fuck.
So when Christopher told Stephen this, that he had murdered somebody, there was a dead body, what Stephen should have done immediately was book him right there and then and take him back to the station. But instead, Stephen said, lead me to her.
What I can tell you is that a 47-year-old man from Swindon is in custody, having been arrested for kidnap and 2 murders. The location of 2 bodies have been identified to me by this individual, one of whom has yet to be identified formally, but I'm quite clear is Sian. I've informed Sian's family, who are obviously deeply distressed. And
Radius. That's that guy, right? The Radius dude. He wasn't excited. He didn't get to say Radius this time, so I figured I'd do it for him. Radius.
The thing about all this was that when Christopher was later back to the station, Christopher Halliwell never made a formal confession. He never repeated what he had said to Stephen Fulcher out there in the woods. He refused to do so. After all this, he was saying no comment. And due to what Stephen Fulcher had done, taking him out there without the whole due process, everything Christopher Halliwell said while out there was now inadmissible. So on one hand, he had messed it all up. It was going to be very hard, maybe even impossible, to get a full conviction of Christopher Halliwell. The most important...
Either that's just like lucky happenstance type shit, or dumb murder dude is smarter than he looked. Or the cop is a hell of a lot dumber than he looks. It could be both. It could be both.
Admitting and taking him to the bodies was inadmissible. They could not use it when the case went to trial. It would be a lot harder to bring Christopher Halliwell to justice, and for what? The whole rush of the thing was that Stephen Fulcher thought maybe, you never know, Sian might still be alive, but I mean, after so long, it was very likely she was dead. If they had slowed down and taken their time and gone through every, rule, it would have all been good. But then again, they may never have gotten the confession in the first place. So that was one argument that was used against Stephen Fulcher, was that,
That's fair.
for what? Now he might somehow evade justice. But on the other hand, he returned 2 daughters to their families.
Get back! Get back! Sorry, just get back. Sorry. Hey!
Who's this dude? Who's that dude?
But luckily, they found more evidence.
Who the fuck was that dude? Was that old girl's husband or other old girl's pimp? I don't know. I don't. He was flipping shit though. I love his fucking energy.
That meant his admissions became less valuable. Sian's blood was found in Christopher Halliwell's taxi, and his DNA was on her body. But the charges of murder for Becky Godden, that was going to be dropped. Other than his confession, which was now inadmissible, they had nothing. Christopher later pleaded guilty to the murder of Sian O'Callaghan. He was sentenced to life in prison. That's a minimum of 25 years.
The police, the court clerk and the chair of the magistrates himself had asked them to stay calm and let the legal process take its course. But the strength...
We seen him pull away from that cop. Yeah, I will fuck you up, bruh. I mean, I don't know what he's saying, but I'm pretty sure that's what it looked like.
The feeling is etched on people's faces here.
Hey, taxi drivers, we love you still. We got respect for you. You're real.
There was a spontaneous round of applause for the taxi drivers who had turned out to show their support. But then the police outriders formed up and the van carrying Mr. Halliwell moved forward.
So, hold on. Taxi driver showed up to support the murderous taxi driver, or the taxi driver people showed up to support the dead people's side? I'm a little lost. Beating the shit out of that poor van. What the fuck did that van do to you?
That's one. But there could be many, many more. Years later, the case of Becky Godden was reopened, and Christopher was interviewed about it. Christopher thought, well, I'm hot shit. Just shit. But he was thinking, balls in my court. And you know what? I'll tell you everything you need to know about what happened to Becky Godden. If we just make it a little dealio that you guys just leave me the shit alone and don't ever ask me about any other wink wink future murders which may wink wink come up. I don't want to talk about murder cases again. Ever.
No, that's not.
I'll get charged with this and I'm found guilty. I'll get natural. I mean, not being found 50 now, but 25 years to go. So chances aren't looking good as it is. If I wrap this up in the next few hours, any other charges against me that will be brought, there's a past. I think you probably know about various things in the past. There's car thefts, break-ins, bits and pieces, and some more serious. Will clearing this up be enough to stop everything else? I don't want to keep coming back every couple of years on a different charge all the time. So what I'm saying is, if I can clear this up in the next few hours, will everything else be forgotten? Because at the end of the day, I'm going to get sentenced to it. I'm just going to they're going to turn the lock and say, that's it, you're done. Right, so what's up?
He looks really happy though. Like he's just sitting back shooting his shit at the big old smile. Look, he's not upset. I mean, he might be. He's got a fucked face, but he might not be upset. He could be relishing in the fact that he's just like, I'm a murderer.
Saying is, okay, I can resolve the matter, but I don't want you coming back every couple of years, every 5 years, every 10 years, whatever. With this, or something. As if it goes to court and I'm found guilty, that's it. They lock me up and swing away the key. I'm under no illusion, I'm not stupid. So that'll be it.
Police said, how about no? He was found guilty of Becky Godden's murder in 2016. This time he got a whole life order. That's Brit for life without parole. Now I've mentioned
that sounds fancy as shit.
Mentioned Christopher Halliwell actually before in a video I made a couple of years ago about the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence. She disappeared from her home in March 2009, almost exactly a year before Shan. It's actually Stephen Fulcher, the lead investigator, who believes there could be links. See, Christopher's dad, he lived not too far away from Claudia Lawrence, who lived in York, though I'm not too sure. And her disappearance, it's not really his M to the O, but you never know. You never know because he's been linked, said, and done a few things, which could lead you to believe that he's probably a hell of a lot more murders in his past. Maybe, yes, definitely, who knows?
Extended way beyond 2 murders, Steve Fulcher believes. Citing a phone conversation recorded in prison, he claims, in which Halliwell was heard saying the police wanted to speak to him about 8 murders, a figure the police didn't recognise.
Holy shit.
Where did he get 8 murders from? It didn't come from me. I've got no idea how many murders he's responsible for. But clearly he made that indication. And when you look at everything we know about Christopher Halliwell, 8 is probably an underestimate.
There's a possibility I think there could...
Holy shit. So, that's crazy. What I'm understanding is, old dude from this one could be tied into a previous case that chapter did. Like, so there could be 8 murder victims.
Murder victim.
There could be 8. Okay. Dude's dad lived in close proximity to one. Start checking into some history there, bud. I mean, y'all, detective work there. Shit.
Be more victims, and I really do.
See, after they arrested him, they found a lot of women's clothing in a secret stash he had. Among them items from Shan and Becky. And
maybe he liked to wear women's clothing. Maybe just some of it came from people he killed. Maybe he killed him because he liked that article of clothing and was like, fuck, that's my size. Stabby, stabby.
as someone who traveled as a taxi driver a lot, he could be around the country in no time. When he was in prison in the 80s, he asked another inmate how many people one needed to kill to become a serial killer. He was taking notes. He was also arrested for the murder of Shan when he was 47 years old, having committed his first confirmed murder 7 years before that. So that would mean he was probably in his late 30s, 40-ish, when he committed his first murder, which is very late in life for a killer. And the way he did it, he probably would have started many years prior. And another thing was that when he led police to Becky Godden's grave, he said she was buried 5 feet down. But when they dug her, she was only buried a couple of inches below the soil. So then they started thinking, it was like, wait, did you just get confused with another grave? He's also drawn some maps. They've never really been released. He likely thought Shan was a sex worker, like Becky was. So how many others did he go after? You don't just drive around for 90 minutes because you suddenly get the urge to kill, having not done it for almost a decade. He was a predator, and predators don't stop. Another book, written by a retired police detective, says he could be linked to over 27 murders. Wow, 27! Why not a million? I think that's maybe pushing it a bit, because that would make him probably one of the most prolific killers in British history.
27 though, he can probably be linked to. Holy shit! But
a lot more. Yeah, sure, yeah. And there you have it. A creepy as hell looking possible serial killer, but definite sack of shit. Christopher Halliwell.
100%.
Sad story, pure predator, nothing but. Stephen Fulcher later resigned after being, shit-canned for breaking guidelines. Halliwell, however, can't resign out of life in prison. I've covered a good few, I would say, stories of British and English killers and criminals and that sort of thing. One thing I've just noticed about them all, they all look like serial killers. Thank you so much for watching.
The boing out there, and they all did look like fucking serial killers. You can't deny that. You can't deny that at all. Oh, that's great. Oh, it's a good story. Dude was a locked up individual. 100%. Definitely at least killed 2. For sure. They're thinking he may have killed at least what did they say? 27? And evidently he just kind of probably fucked up on that last kill because she wasn't a sex worker. She had a family who genuinely cared about her. I know what you're going to say. I'm not saying people don't care about sex workers. It's just most of them, if they have family to rely on or know where they're at or they keep in touch with, they usually don't do sex work. It's kind of a last resort thing. But she had family that was like, oh, nope, she ain't here, something wrong. Call the police. Damn, and if that wasn't the case, if he went after her, he probably would still be murdering people. Sad but true. Alright, y'all. I really enjoyed today's story. If you enjoyed today's story as well, please leave a thumbs up. If you're a fan of the spooky, scary, strange, deranged, taxi cab confessions gone wrong, think about subscribing. Yeah. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. I'm never taking a taxi. I'm not taking. I don't ever. No. I'm gonna become a recluse. A recluse.